What's up, everybody? kidmoto22 here, coming to you guys with a new season and a few new things that I'm going to be bringing to the table with the new season. So one of the things I wanted to do was bring you guys in and tell you a little bit about some of my motorcycle adventures that I have, kind of more in a story time vlog kind of format. So here we are. I'm going to do my first one. I'm going to tell you a little bit about something that happened to me on my trip to South Dakota when I was with a few other guys riding out there, and it was kind of crazy and I almost died. So let's get to it. Welcome back, everybody. So if you didn't hear, this is going to be a new thing I'm bringing to my new season, and this is going to be story time with kidmoto. Sounds kind of corny, but hey, you know, come up with a better name for me and I'll use it. So this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about a trip that I had when I went to South Dakota. So here this last season, many of you know that the Midwest Moto Meetup 2020 was postponed. We all know that, and we were not very excited about it, but it was postponed. And so I'm bringing a new thing because of because it was postponed, and I had to take I didn't have to, but we decided we were going to take a trip to South Dakota instead. So with that trip to South Dakota came some pretty crazy times, some pretty crazy adventures, and so I'm going to tell you about some of those things in my first installment of Story Time. And so really what I want to do is just kind of get right to it, and I'll tell you about what happened. So I was riding with three other guys, and Kenny, Todd, and Jason, and we had just gone on a really amazing trip, really amazing ride, I should say, through Needles Canyon. So if you, Needles Canyon, Needles Highway, call it what you will. Needles Highway, I guess, is probably the more correct term. But we just went down Needles Highway. We got to the other side of Needles Highway, and there was a little bit of a turnoff. And so we turned off, we got off our bikes just to reflect on the ride that we just had. It was an amazing ride. So if you haven't had an opportunity, you got to get out and ride Needles Highway. It is absolutely amazing and worth the price of admission for sure. So we pulled over on this stop. We all stopped, we got off our bikes, we had some water, just reflected on the ride that we just had, which was absolutely amazing. And we decided we were going to continue our day and continue on down the road. I'm not really sure what highway we were on, but anyway, we all hopped on our bikes after resting for a few minutes, and we headed down the road. I was leading with the three guys following me. We came up on a hill and crested over the hill and came down, and it was canyon. So on both sides we had kind of, on one side there was a railing. So we had a railing on this side, and on this side just kind of what looked like maybe a really small shoulder, about maybe a foot or so, and then maybe 2 feet, not very much. And then it was just kind of a cliff face that went down, maybe, you know, 40, 50 feet down into a bit of a valley. Could have been further. I'm just making an estimation. But we were in basically a canyon, and it was shaped, you know, kind of like this. So there were hills on both sides. We'd crested the one hill and came down, and we were just coming down the hill, and right in front of us was a family of, I think, 5 or 6 people that were on bicycles. As we were coming up on the family, and let me kind of give you a perspective of this. So the family was all in a row, and they were kind of riding on the shoulder of the road, with the father riding in the very back. So I remember thinking at this point, I did see a speed limit sign. I glanced up and saw the speed limit was posted as 55. I remember glancing down and noticing that we were not exceeding the speed limit. So we were going the marked speed limit for this area. And so we headed on down the road a little bit further. And as I came up towards the family, I'm assuming that they heard us because they didn't really look back. The father pulled across the road, and he was now riding on the yellow line on his bike, and the rest of his family kind of stayed on the shoulder. So this signaled to me that he wanted us to go around. Not a problem. We did not have a problem, you know, going around. And so as I came up on him to go around them, Again, we were going the speed limit, they were riding bikes. So as I came up on him to go around, he apparently, based on what my buddies told me, he signaled, hand signaled with his left hand, but he did that when I was already up past him, and basically signaled for his entire family to move to the left. Why he did this, I have no idea. So immediately his family moves to the left. Now they're riding bikes and I'm traveling 55. So I've basically covered most of the family at this point, except for he had one daughter, I would estimate her age to be 9 years old, who was at the very front of the pack. And instead of kind of moving over like you would have expected, she kind of turned and came straight across the road. So here I am, what do? I'm going 55, headed right at what I estimated to be a 9-year-old girl that I was going to plow right into. And at that point, I really didn't feel, I'm a father of 2 girls myself. I didn't really feel like I had much of a choice. There weren't really any escape routes, except one, which was right off of the cliff. I didn't have a choice. I knew that I couldn't live with myself if I would have hit and killed a 9-year-old girl, and so essentially I aimed for the side of the road, and at that point really didn't feel like that I had much choice. I did start my emergency braking. Now I do have anti-lock brakes on my bike, so those of you that don't know, I ride a 2017 Road King Special, and I used my emergency braking, so I was on the back brake. And I was on it enough that my brakes were not locking up, and obviously with anti-lock brakes they wouldn't. And then I was feathering my front brake because I wanted to keep under control as much as I could. I had decided in the brief seconds that I had during that time that I wasn't going to hit this girl. I was going to go off of the cliff. And so essentially I pointed my bike that direction, and that's where I was going. I needed to avoid her with the best of my ability. So as I was coming up on her, there was a very brief moment where I'm not sure if she was signaled by her father. I'm really not sure what she did, but there appeared to be room for me. So she's coming across like this, I'm coming basically straight at her, and I hit the edge of the road, or the shoulder of the road, which was gravel. My front tire hit and came back up onto the pavement very quickly in that shoulder area, and my back tire then came down into the gravel. So she's here, I'm kind of in the gravel this direction, and immediately when my back tire hit the gravel, my back end broke loose a little bit and pointed me in a direction where it looked like I had an escape route. And so I took that opportunity. I accelerated, and as she was going this way, I accelerated directly past her. I'm not gonna lie, in those few moments there, when you come up in a situation like that, I made what I thought was the only choice that I had, which was to go off of the cliff. I knew that I wasn't gonna be able to live with myself if I hit that girl. I didn't see another escape route except for the direction I was going, and it turns out that that really did work out really well in terms of getting me out of that situation. As you can imagine, the other guys were following behind me, obviously saw that, but they had another similar scenario, which is the whole family kind of sprung all over the road like fireflies. They just went everywhere when, because when they saw what happened, I believe that girl screamed, or the father screamed, one of them during that time, and the family was all over the road. And so the guys behind me had to essentially do their own evasive maneuvers and kind of weave in and out of the family members as we continued on up the road. So we continued on up the road, and we pulled over at a gas station and just sat there for a few minutes and got a candy bar and of water and just kind of reflected on that. And my initial thought was, and I asked the guys I was with, you know, what did I do? I at that point, I wasn't really sure whether or not in that scenario I was in the wrong. I felt like I was in the right. They told me that they saw him signal to the left, but not until I was past him. And so at that point, it wasn't something that I could see. I don't understand what his thinking was in that idea, because if he'd have just stayed on the yellow line, we would have all gone around him and it would have been no harm, no foul. I don't understand what motivated him to signal to the rest of his family to pull all the way over to the other side of the road when, you know, we clearly could have just passed them and it really wouldn't have caused any trouble. So, you know, the buddies I was with, they all told me that this was not on me. You know, he essentially made a mistake and signaled his family to cross over the, you know, the lane, and then the other lane where oncoming traffic would have been. I still, to this day, don't understand why he did that, but that's essentially what happened. So there it was in those brief moments, and I decided that I was gonna go off a cliff rather than run into a 9-year-old girl. So you just never know. You never know when you're riding your motorcycle, when, you know, that ride could be your last ride. But, you know, you really have to do everything you can to prepare yourself, to use all of the skills and training that you have, to be prepared for these situations, to know what to do in an emergency situation, know your emergency braking techniques, know where your exits are. I think that was one of the things that I learned for myself, is that being pressed in an emergency situation, I was able to use my emergency braking and was able to find an exit and find my way out of that situation, as were all of the guys that rode behind me, which was good. No one was injured, no one was hurt, and we kept going and kept having a good day and a good ride in South Dakota. So there you go. I think that's probably it. That's my my story for today, my story time, and what I wanted to tell you guys for my first story time with kidmoto. Yeah, if you like it, let me know. Give me a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, you can check out some of my other videos. I do travel videos. I have some install videos, most of it surrounding my Road King special. I also have what I pack for camping. There's a variety of videos. I'll put some links up here to some videos you might like. If you're new to my channel, give me a thumbs up if you like it. If you didn't, I apologize. Hit the subscribe button. You guys kind of know the deal. So anyway, this is kidmoto. I'm out.